Hello to the Banbury group. Greetings from Thailand. Long time no see. Sarah asked me to talk a little bit about metta or loving kindness, and specifically perspective from lay life. So I suppose there's a few people listening to this who I never met, but I was a monk for almost 20 years. I used to come and visit Banbury group quite often, and then just about 3.5 years ago, about 4.5 years ago, I came to Thailand, and 3.5 years ago decided to leave the robes. So, loving kindness or metta perspective as a layman. I suppose my understanding and practice and development of loving kindness, it's carried along on the same trajectory as when I was a monk. My practice, things may have changed on the outside when I disrobed, but internally I'm still practicing in a very similar way. One of the ways in which loving kindness has sort of really, my practice of it and understanding of it has really deepened since disrobing is how I experience it for myself. So loving kindness really arises, so why does loving kindness arise? What is the cause of loving kindness? We talk a lot about deliberately cultivating it, repeating certain, phrases and cultivating certain habits of thought, like may I be happy, may I be happy, may all beings be happy, and so on. Which, it's an important practice, but really loving kindness arises from an understanding of suffering. And the deeper your understanding of suffering, then the deeper your experience of loving kindness will be. Loving kindness for yourself and for others. And one thing that has been happening with me is just more deeply understanding my own suffering and seeing how that suffering expresses itself. I'll give you an example. So I went through, towards the end of my monastic life, I went through a very difficult time in my mind. And about 4 years ago, beginning of 2000, I started to have a series of very vivid and helpful dreams. And these have been a great teaching for me and source of understanding and growth. And I just want to tell you about one of these dreams. So I'm dreaming that I'm in this, it's like a house that's being built. It's a bit of a building site. And I'm standing in this big room downstairs with two other men. And this other man walks into the room. He's wearing this green sweater. I think he's got black hair. And he's carrying an armful of roofing tiles. And he's extremely angry and upset. And he walks into the room and he just throws these tiles down into the middle of the floor, just breaking them. And he's swearing and he's cursing and being extremely aggressive and difficult. And we criticise him and, tell him that was a stupid, pointless thing to do, destructive. Why did you do that? And he just storms off, walks across the room and out the front door and outside. I then follow him outside. I walk through the door. I come to this little patio area. I look to my left and I see him. And he is standing sort of metre away from the wall. His hands are pressed up against the wall. And he's getting ready to smash his head into the wall. And life has become too much for him. It's unbearable. All he's experiencing is this deep anguish and suffering. And I stand there and I see his suffering completely. I understand his suffering. And I understand that behaviour before, this destructive, aggressive, angry behaviour, was just like a symptom of this very, very troubled, suffering mind. He wants to end it. It's become too much. So I see him and it's like I envelop him with my loving kindness as I stand there, and I fully just witness his suffering without wanting it to be any other way. I just see it completely, see it deeply. So I walk over to him and I put my arm around him and tell him that it's okay, that people care. And this then, his suffering, his dis-ease, his anguish then subsides as he is seen, as he is witnessed. And then I walk away with him. So I think this is a really good analogy for how loving kindness arises through seeing suffering and seeing past appearances, such as people's and one's own anger and frustration and aggressive tendencies, all these kinds of things, that beneath them is suffering, and that, these various unpleasant, difficult expressions that we experience in ourselves and what we see in others, they are all just arising from from suffering, from a suffering mind that's not at ease. And when you actually see that suffering clearly, without any, just a pure witnessing of it, with no agenda, without even any wish to alleviate it at that point, but just a bare acknowledging and seeing, then it can completely transform the way you relate to yourself and to others, because you understand. And then this compassion and this loving kindness and all the associated qualities such as patience, equanimity, and so on, compassion, then naturally begin to arise. So the more deeply we can open up to our own suffering and actually, in a way, be at ease in witnessing it and being able to truthfully see it, then this is really one of the keys to developing loving kindness. And again, another factor which is so crucial in this is truthfulness, and not deceiving yourself, but really being prepared to see whatever the reality is. So, this is, when the Buddha set off to reach enlightenment, his goal, as far as we understand, was not to develop loving kindness. His goal was to free his mind from greed, hate, and delusion. When he became the Buddha, he understood those Four Noble Truths, which all center around suffering. And he understood that. He freed his mind from the defilements. And, of course, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, all arose and became perfect for him, naturally. Remember, one of the one of the ways in which conditioned things, are unsatisfactory, are dukkha, is that they are anicca, they are impermanent, transient. Ajahn Chah said that when you see sabbe sankhara anicca, when you see that all conditioned things are impermanent and transient, then you cannot not have loving kindness. You cannot not have it. So it seems that the priority is to keep deepening your understanding, your wisdom, your insight. So as well as cultivating loving kindness deliberately, we're deepening our insight and also contemplating impermanence, anicca. then you will naturally become more understanding of others, more compassionate. So, coming back to my own experience, perspective from a layman, well, I suppose it hasn't changed that much. It's deepened, and I suppose I have more opportunities to apply it, because I'm, dealing with other people a lot more. I suppose it's just really been about deepening it for myself. I faced many challenges here, having left the monastery after 20 years and coming out literally without, I didn't have a penny. So it's been a real challenge to find my way, and that's required a lot of patience for myself. As I go along, find my way, make mistakes, fall down, pick myself up. It's required an awful lot of compassion for myself, but I understand deep down that there's this part of me that wishes to be free from suffering, and I'm doing my best to help myself in that way. So I suppose it's been a deepening friendship with myself. Now, of course, I'm talking a lot about myself, but all of these attitudes that you have towards yourself, in a way you will automatically have those for others. If you're not a good friend to yourself, it's really impossible to be a good friend to another. If you don't love yourself, it's really impossible to genuinely love another. So, this is, I suppose, has been the main lesson, deepening my own friendship and towards myself, and deepening that loving kindness and compassion. But it's all come about through more deeply understanding my own suffering and my own traumas. This has been a big part of my experience over the last few years, unearthing traumas and kind of befriending those and healing those. And so I think that's really all I have to offer for now. It's the first Dhamma Talk that I've given in several years. So, well, I hope these words have been helpful to you. And I wish you